Hello and welcome to episode 24 of When the Flames Go Up, the ATFC podcast. We've got a special interview today with Rob Worrall. I can't really introduce him any more than I do on the prod, but you'll know his voice if you don't off the top of your head right now. As soon as he starts speaking, you'll know. He's the BBC Surrey sport commentator and host of NL Full-Time, a National League podcast, which is great. Go and check it out. It goes into way more detail than we ever will on the National League in general, and is a great source of all the things you need to know about other clubs with lots of different interviews and stuff. And hopefully we'll be doing some more interviews in the future. So if you've got any ideas or people that you really want us to kind of speak to or hear from on the podcast, then let me know. As always, atfcpodcast@gmail.com. With that, enjoy the episode and speak to you after. Right, I'm delighted to welcome to When the Flames Go Up, Rob Worrall, BBC Surrey commentator and NL full-time host, and I guess the voice of ATFC for most far-flung shots or shots on holiday. Welcome to the pod. How are you doing?
Yeah, really well, thank you, and good to speak to you guys. Good to see one or two of your faces that I'm not familiar with. Of course, I have been listening to the majority of your podcasts so far, and it's been really, really good. Not just a good season for shots on the pitch, but for two podcasts to start up as well, and earn some real credibility. So well done.
Right, thank you very much. And with that, I can also get Joe, Julian, and Ian. They're in the call with us. They are obviously part of this as well. Have been great for starting this and getting it off the ground. So I'm gonna throw to one of them to start some questions for you. I couldn't even think of any more questions because of the questions that Joe, Julian, and Ian came up with. So let's start there and see where we go. Joe, you're first up on my screen. Do you want to fire a question across?
Yeah, I'll go with a pretty cliche question to start off with for you, Rob. Well, we'll hit you with what's the worst shots game you've ever had to commentate on, and that can be quality, it can be, and yeah, however you want to interpret that question.
The toughest, probably. I mean, I'd slightly be tweaking this a little bit, but because I wasn't commentating, I was co-commentating with Gav Dennison, but it was the 8-2 defeat away at Chester. It's the one that actually resulted in the most interaction we've ever had before or since then. It was like gallows humor coming to the fore. People were messaging in saying, I once played in this game and we lost this amount, or I once scored in the first minute of a game, but we went on to lose 21-1 and things like that, you know. So, yeah, I can't quite grasp one as a commentator, which is terrible, really, because it's nearly 400 games in 7 years. There's been some dull ones. I hate the dull ones, but I'm delighted to say there's barely been a dull one, certainly in the last season or so.
That's a great answer. Thanks, Rob.
Love that. I definitely texted in with the 8-2. I was at university with my head in my hands, screaming, and yeah, my housemates kept coming in every time I yelped, and then just kind of got an update on the score, and I was like, they've scored again. It's bloody Alabi. What's he doing?
If I remember right, it was 2-2 at one point, or we went, very close in the first 20 minutes. It looked like it was going to be a 5-4, but it didn't. It ended 8-2.
Crazy. Let's go to you, Julian. Start your questions off.
Thanks, Will. Rob, really appreciate you coming on the call. What I'd really like to know, Rob, we know that you don't just rock up 5 minutes to 3 on a Saturday to commentate for the BBC. Can you give us an idea of what your typical Saturday routine would be like, assuming that we're at home?
At home, right, okay. Well, to me, one of the first things to mention is they can be quite similar, my preparation on a match day and my travel, whether we're at home or away, because I live in St Neots in Cambridgeshire, and it's a 200-mile round trip for a home game. I should add, slight caveat there, I am married now, and my wife and I don't live together, and she does live in Surrey. So it's only about a 30-minute journey from hers if I'm already at hers. I personally, my best preparation, a home game or away, is to travel by train. it's much more comfortable. You don't have to concentrate on the driving, and I can really get down to some of the detail of my commentary preparation. And often on a match day, that's about the visiting team or the team that we're playing away at, because as you guys would know, and I'm no different to you guys in this respect, we live and breathe Aldershot Town Football Club. We sleep it sometimes. We probably dream it, you know. And so over the period of time, especially in this role, as you get to know the manager a little bit and you get to know some of the staff and the players, you don't need to brush up too much on Aldershot. It's usually the opposition. And that's a fascinating one, because I never want to skimp on the research on the opposition. I'd always rather know a little bit too much about them than not enough. And I think that's just a professional pride, really. I can remember during the COVID season, Steve Gibbs and I, at home games, I think we were getting a bit of criticism because we were giving out too many facts and stats and information on the opposition. Some of our own supporters didn't like it, but I'd have to reach for the old saying, you can never please all the people all of the time.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
Just going to say on the, you know, that's the kind of the journey and the preparation side of it. On a match day, I'd normally get there 2 hours minimum, so probably 2.5 before the game. People that listen regularly will know we're not blessed with the most modern equipment at the BBC. The big thing for me every week, get there, plug everything in and pray that it all works. And if it does, and it has been updated in the last season or so it's more reliable now, then I can start to relax and get my mindset right for the game. And the only other thing to say on a match day as well, win, lose or draw, it's interview the manager and one of the players afterwards, and my only point on that would be this: it feels very special when they win. It feels like you've got the best job in the world, and it's a bag of shite when they lose, because you don't want to stay. The fan in you wants to go. You know that the manager or the players don't particularly want to do the interviews, but they front up and they do it and we get it done. But yeah, big highs, big lows. And as everybody always tells you in football, you got to try and even them out.
And when you're doing the commentating, I'm guessing that you've got the BBC guys in your ear most of the time. So that must be quite a skill to be able to be listening to them, but also to be commentating. Yeah,
I remember in the 2 or 3 years I sat regularly alongside Gav Dennison thinking, wow, how incredible is this guy? I could never do that. I remember thinking it. And then bit by bit, layer by layer, you end up probably learning more of these skills. And it's only in this last season that BBC Surrey have gone back to having a sports programme with a live game. And I'm really delighted that Tim Durrans, the BBC sports editor, entrusted me this season. There's no doubt in my mind at all, Aldershot had more main games. We were the live game so many times. That's when you have to then develop this additional skill, not just hearing when you've got to go and do an update, but when you're actually presenting the show and you've got to be the one that uses their initiative to when you're going to go to the other games to get the updates from them. It's like anything you do in life repetitively, it becomes second nature. You gradually get more comfortable at it and you can gradually build up the layers of what you do. But I want to take this opportunity, this platform now, just to thank Graham Brookland, who gave me my very first opportunity in media at Aldershot and believed in me. And obviously, particularly to Tim Durrans, who's encouraged me as well, who gave me the opportunity on BBC Surrey. And then when Gav Dennison, after 11 years as the Aldershot commentator, he was the voice of Aldershot Town. When he moved on with his day job to the Middle East for a year or so, they gave me a chance. I was so lucky because Nicky Bull was available and wanted to watch some Shots games. And I think he did the first 23 games with me, which took a lot of pressure off me. And yeah, it's been amazing. I absolutely love it. I wouldn't swap it for the world. I wouldn't walk away from the world. I may say the wrong thing one day and end up not having the job anymore, but we do our best.
And how long, Rob, have you been supporting the Shots for?
It's actually the 50th year. It was 1974, the first game that me and my brother Patrick went to. And one of the very earliest things I saw was was that very famous day when Aldershot played Newport and Glenn Johnson saved a penalty that was taken 3 times at the East Bank end, and he saved it each time. It was incredible. That's one of my earliest memories. I'm 57 now, 58 in a couple of weeks, and yes, the 50th year now that I've been supporting Aldershot Town.
Lovely stuff. We'll throw to Ian. What's your question for Rob?
Yeah, I think one of your sort of more famous or infamous commentaries was the behind closed doors game against Sutton, when unfortunately the camera on the sideline was tracking the ball rather than the ball in the net. Were you aware of what was happening during that? It seemed like a right nightmare to commentate on.
Yeah, it was. I mean, thankfully, all the little teething problems that there were overcome bit by bit, and one or two of them reoccurred, didn't they? But to be perfectly honest, my perspective on that at the time, it was someone else's job to track the ball with the camera, or they were trying to do it in an automated way and it wasn't working. But that was something I had no control over. I was having to adapt to 2 things. One, commentating on the game from the other side of the pitch over in the south stand in the executive boxes, and being inside of them, not only feeling further distance from the action by being inside a box, but there being no fans in the stadium, or very few, like a few ball boys. We suddenly had a lot of people that wanted to be ball boys, didn't we? And so, yeah, it was really, really tough. But in those situations, I think you have a choice: you sink or swim, and you just keep desperately froggy paddling, or whatever it's called, doggy paddling. Sorry. And we kind of got through it. I know the chairman got a lot of stick at the time, but I'll tell you what, he put in place a tremendous TV production team. I think Aldershot Town had one of the best media coverage of the games during that season eventually, and I don't think any awards were ever handed out, but Aldershot didn't skimp that. They really got stuck into that, and Mark Butler did a fantastic job fronting the TV programme, and it was exciting to be a part of. Had some great guests sitting there with me as well during that season, during the COVID period. So yeah, I mean, it's just another experience in what's been a multitude of them. But great question. I can remember literally wanted to crawl up the wall and get out of there. But the game carried on, and you have to carry on, and you just do the best you can.
Yeah, it did feel for you there.
I'm sure it also followed a bald linesman's head at some point, but maybe that's me remembering it wrong. Iconic. But yeah, what you say about the Aldershot's coverage over COVID, that every other team that I switched on a stream was dreadful. So, I mean, massive. It was always a pleasure to watch a home game during those COVID years. So,
that's right.
Around, and Joe, we'll come back around to you.
Great, thanks. So one thing we've discussed, it's come up a few times when we've recorded this podcast, Rob, is where do you see the Shots' natural place in the pyramid at the moment? Because obviously the majority of the time you've been the main commentator has been in the National League, and it seems like we've been there forever now. But obviously previous to that we've been Football League. And where do you see us as a, where do you see us basically in the pyramid?
Well, I see us where we are. We've been here longer than any other team now at this level, but I don't see any ceiling. I don't see any reason why we can't go up, particularly under the great management we've got now, particularly with a lot of the fan base being re-engaged. We overachieved massively this season, so much so that it felt like an underachievement in the end, didn't it? We almost, I think, with probably 6 or 7 or 8 games to go, really anything remotely like the form we'd had for the rest of the season would have been enough, but it wasn't to be. I don't see any reason why we can't get up to League 2 at all. It would certainly be helped if we had 3 up, 3 down. The chances would be increased. But I think when we were up in League 2, and I first was getting involved on the media side, and most often then commentating alongside Gav Dennison, we held our own for a lot of the time, didn't we? So I think we're one of several clubs who should, if we got it together and got up one season, we could hold our own in League 2. I don't have any real major concerns about that.
Great, thanks, Rob. And I've just got one more for you. Obviously, we've had a lot of players come and go in the last 10 seasons, and we've had some, I think as many fans would agree, some forgettable seasons where we've sort of battled with the relegation and pushing towards mid-table. But if you could bring one player back from the last, let's say, last 10 years to play under Tommy Widrington in the system he plays now, a really exciting attacking football, is there anyone that comes to mind that you'd love to see return?
Yeah, it's a good shout. I mean, it's to a certain extent hypothetical, and I want to kind of make it a little bit more real. And I do wonder where one or two of those players have gone now. I wonder where Kundai Benyu is and what he's doing. Obviously, he went off and he was at Celtic, and I don't think he quite fully made it there. He had a few appearances, didn't he? But I suppose one that would be interesting, Idris Kanu. We saw him as a raw 16-year-old, and he's probably still hasn't really fulfilled the potential in terms of the amount of goals and assists. But it would be interesting to see him back in an Aldershot shirt, and I don't realistically think that's likely to happen. I'm not one of these that when a player becomes available that played for us 6, 7 or 8 years ago and moved on, I'm not one of these that goes, oh, get them back out of sentiment. Get them back if the circumstances are right, if they're the right player in the right position that we need. But sometimes in football you have to move on. So yeah, I'll go with Idris Kanu just because he was here as a 16-year-old, and what is he now? I don't know, 20, 26, 27, 28.
Nice one. Right. Well, let's head to Julian for another question.
Rob, obviously the last season was in many ways exceptional. The interesting thing for me was that this time last year, the bookies had us as favourites for relegation. And with that in mind, I'm so impressed with the type of player that we're able to get in, bearing in mind the season we just had. So what were your initial expectations for last season? And when did you feel that we were actually really on for something special?
Yeah, it's a good question. From what I'd seen and felt after Tommy had come in for the previous 6 games of the other season, and we were unbeaten in those, and then the recruitment as well. You don't want to laugh at anybody, but I thought it was just lazy. People that really weren't close to it and didn't know, supporters of a lot of other clubs in the National League, just randomly tipping us to go down. And I thought to myself, well, I don't know how much we could improve, but I never feared that we would go down. I do remember, though, and I think I'm going to say it was about 8 or 9 games into the season, we dropped back to 21st position. And it was the position we've probably occupied the most over the last 4 or 5 seasons. And I don't think there was certainty around then, was there? A lot of the new players, the supporters hadn't quite taken to, and there was still an awful lot of doubts. But I think it's once they started to climb the table, and once we started to get on that FA Cup run, at that point, I think we all started to believe a little bit. We all started to wonder what might happen. I think on our NL full-time podcast that we do, I kind of took a conservative view. I thought, well, they're not going to be in the bottom 4, but I'm not going to predict them to do something stupid because I'll end up with egg on my face if they don't. So I think I predicted Aldershot to finish 15th or 16th, which would have been a little bit of an improvement. So yeah, I was blown away by what we actually went on to do. 8th place was certainly above my expectations.
And with so many highlights to feast on last season, was there one in particular that just was above the rest?
Yes. And I'm going to pick a moment within the obvious game. And I want to take you back to how I saw it. Of course, the several thousand Aldershot fans in that steep bank seating at Swindon couldn't believe what they saw either. But I had a really strange experience that day. I was in the media box, but there was no live commentary that day. I had to do something called a dry commentary, to basically watch the action with all my equipment set up, and then when there was an attack or a chance to to start up commentary in case it needed to be clipped for any goals. And so there I sat, quiet for long periods, but then suddenly bursting into commentary for not one but 7 Aldershot Town goals. And the absolute best moment of all within that for me was when Tolaj attempted the half volley on his right foot and got the whatever goal it was, 5th, 6th, 7th. That was an incredible moment, and it was a moment that thankfully I managed to articulate, I think, fairly well with what was going on. We know what his left foot can do, but now he's shown us what he can do with his right. So the Tolaj goal was the moment within an incredible afternoon, one that I'll never forget. My phone rang 5 minutes after the final whistle. It was somebody I'd never heard of, but he said he was from the BBC, and I can't remember his name now, but he said, I need to go and meet up with the so-and-so cameraman and interview Tommy and Jack Barham, who got a hat-trick, because they want it for Match of the Day. And they ended up using the goal commentary on Match of the Day as well. So it was very different perspective, I think, to the thousands of Shots fans who watched it, who sang, who pinched themselves in disbelief. And there was me sat with a load of people probably staring at me as my voice kind of broke into excitement and surprise. If you look at the highlights with the commentary, the first, second, maybe even the third and fourth goals, there's sheer disbelief in my voice at what's happening. So yeah, Swindon away, 7-4, Tolaj's goal. And then just the feeling after beating Stockport 1-0 away from home, the only time in 7 years that I've actually stayed overnight after a commentary because of, transport links, etc. And me and Steve Gibbs stayed in a Airbnb just a little way out of Stockport, somewhere near Altrincham, and we stayed there and we sat and had breakfast the next morning. I took a phone call from the BBC and did something live to the radio show. So probably those FA Cup games, Swindon and Stockport, yeah.
It's so surreal hearing it from your point of view. That's wild. And I will now have to go and re-watch the highlights again just to fully appreciate the doing it like dry. Must have been that's wild.
The other thing just to add to that is it's easy to look back now and say that, but the other side of the coin is myself and many other local BBC commentators probably sit at countless games and do these little snippets of dry commentary. They never go anywhere. They never get used for anything. But had I not done it, had I not put my heart and soul into it that day, had I done it by half measures, then that commentary would never have made it through. It would never have got on Match of the Day, and it never would have given me what is far and away my best ever moment, commentating Aldershot Town.
Love that. And Ian, you're gonna come in there? You've got a question.
Yeah, just saying, I think on our end of season episode, and when we were reviewing the cup run, the 6th goal, which is the Tolaj one you described, is probably the goal of the season for us. I think we came to that consensus, didn't we?
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
It's up there for all of us. Yeah.
I tell you who's got a different time. I'm going to out him here, and he won't like this, and nor will Laurent. But Frosty reckons that he mishit that. I'm not having it, but but the thing is, when you're another player in the same team and you train with them and you know them and stuff like that, I don't even care. Let's put it that way. I don't care if it was a mishit. It's the best mess hit I've ever commentated.
I think because it was his right foot and he had a real go. Probably 9 times out of 10 that would have ended up in the terracing behind. But just everything went the right way. Everything they touched turned to gold, didn't it?
Yeah, it was unbelievable, and it went right up there, didn't it? Probably it takes the end of the season coming now to sit back and reflect. But whenever I've been asked what my all-time favourite Aldershot Town moment it was Scotty Davis, in the 96th minute or whatever at Torquay. Nothing came close. Hilton at West Ham, 89th minute, came close, but I think Tolaj, that 6th goal, that moment, I think it's right up there for me.
I think also in commentator canon as well, Aldershot, because the goals you've described there. Obviously, we've got the Setanta Sports commentator. I can reel off that entire bit when Scott Davis scores, and the same with that Hilton goal, Gavin Dennison. When it comes across the Hilton, that's iconic as well. So to have your name in one of those iconic moments must be great.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, I love football so much. I played for many, many years myself and never got to a particularly high level. United Counties League was the highest. So obviously, any of us that are true Shots fans, our greatest dream would probably be to play for Aldershot Town. But I think as I obviously was never going to do that, to get to commentate on them, I feel really, really lucky.
Love that. And Ian, you got a question you want to fire?
Yes, back to the commentary. So you started in, I guess, the summariser position or the co-commentator. Now you're on the other side and you use a variety of people next to you. Some are ex-players, some are current players, some are just supporters. Who out of those is perhaps your favourite to work with, if you're able to say, and who perhaps that you've summarised with you feel reads the game the best?
That's really good. Yeah, really, really good question. It's fair to say that my preference, because although I've been involved in football for many years, I am, when you strip it back, I'm a fan. So I love to have a professional opinion alongside me. In terms of the professional opinions alongside me, I've had some fantastic ones right from the beginning. Really, Nicky Bull was amazing. I thought Nick Arnold was excellent too. Lewis Kinsella struck a good balance. Neil Smudger-Smith is just one of my favourite people on the earth, and he's a joy to commentate with, and he really gave you that insight, the dark arts, as we call them, when I'm there with Smudger, the professional side of it. They were really, really good. In terms of how well they articulate themselves, I have to mention Steve Gibbs. He's written the non-league paper reports and the Aldershot Town website reports and the Shots web reports for years and years and years. And, he'll very often use 5 or 10 words that no other football reporter would use. So he's brilliant with his articulation. I love working with Steve. I've worked with Steve more than anybody else. He needs to get into his flow, and when he flows, he's magnificent. But we don't always have time for his flow, so that sometimes can be. I'm sort of waving at him or pointing and going, "Yep, wrap up there," because the ball's fizzing down the wing and about to come in, and then another set of people will moan to me that we've not commentated on the action. So, I can't pinpoint one person. Somebody who's only done it a few times, who's absolutely brilliant at picking up when he needs to just stop or finish off because the action's building, is Stuart Griffiths, who's a supporter. He's been involved with the Supporters Trust in the past. But I've been so lucky to have so many. I could be really cheeky and tell you the worst. I think it was away at Bowers and Pitsea in the FA Cup. And it was Jacob Berkeley Agyapong, and he didn't want to be there, and he didn't want to see what happen. I think he did the first half. I don't think he came out for the second.
No way.
A pod exclusive.
Yeah, and there was someone else who was told by the manager to do it, but I think he'd also been told that his end of his loan was up, and he was going back as well. And you know what? This is not me sitting on the fence. I genuinely can't remember his name, but he's the least enthusiastic that ever sat alongside me. But no, give me Neil Smudger-Smith anytime. Give me Nicky Bull back, and give me Steve Gibbs, and I'll be a happy commentator.
Can I just follow up on that answer, Rob? Obviously, you said first and foremost you're a fan. Now, I just don't think I could ever do commentary because when a goal goes in, it doesn't matter, what the game is. I couldn't contain myself. How do you not just shout and swear, get in, and then carry on talking and describe what's just happened? That's just so against my natural response to a goal. So I cannot see how you do it. And I listen on the radio, and just even when the ball goes out for a corner, the way you describe the game gets me excited, and that's the nature of radio commentary. Can you just delve into that a bit for me?
Well, I think I can't kid you or anybody else. I think when Aldershot score compared to the opposition, you can tell the difference in my commentary. Conversely, I've tried harder and harder to still sound to a decent level of excitement when the opposition score. That, trust me, is the hardest thing to do. I remember Jim Kellerman scoring in a Boxing Day derby at Aldershot when I think Woking won, and somebody crossed the he crossed the ball, and I went, "Oh, it's Jim Kellerman." Oh, and it's gone in off there. And I literally did something like that. It was terrible. It was like, "Oh, it's gone in off his leg," or whatever. That was really embarrassing. I can't really contain the excitement. All I can try and do is just articulate it as best I can. And the very first thing you said, like, I just want to go, yeah, get in or whatever. I do try and avoid doing that. But the very first time I ever appeared on the radio, Gav Dennison was the commentator. It was Oxford United away in the Football League. I'd never done it before. Somebody didn't turn up. They asked me to do it. It was my first time in the chair. And it was the game that Aldershot won 1-0 with marvellous Marvin Morgan curling one in from the inside right channel.
Great match.
And Gav had briefed me really well. He had said to me, if there's a goal, I describe it until I'm finished describing it, and then I'll go Oxford United 0, Aldershot 1. But that ball went in. I kept the microphone on my lips, and I went, "Oh, what a goal!" And I absolutely infuriated Gav. And I don't know however I got a second gig, but there you go. It worked out okay in the end, didn't it?
You're only human. I think that just shows your passion.
Nightmare first game to come into. That was extraordinary goal at an extraordinary time.
Great result as well. The highlights are on YouTube somewhere. I saw that not long ago. Brilliant match.
Great. Yeah, the BBC
I think he really wound up the Oxford fans when he celebrated as well.
All that one,
yeah, he was.
He did, didn't he? Not as badly as he did when we won, I think, 2 or 3-0 at Northampton at Sixfields. He ran along the touchline with his pistols going pow, 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 yeah, and got away with that. I think when a striker of another team did that at the Rec or at the EBB, I think he ended up getting punished for it. But marvellous Marvin Morgan. God rest his soul, he got away with that one.
Right, we'll go to you, Julian. You got another question?
Yeah, Rob, we're all obviously really excited about the coming season. And we obviously recording this on the back of 2 young signings with great potential, which is really exciting. I think they're types of players that perhaps we might not have been able to attract a year ago. We're in such a good position at the moment, I think, to be able to go for those signings that we really want. With those signings in mind, where do you think Tommy is going to be prioritising, and what sort of player do you think? Well, let's just say you're the manager, Rob. What player would you go for? Players.
Yeah, really good question. I love those 2 signings we've made already. I mean, Pat Nash has been training with Aldershot since halfway through last season. They've been keeping really close tabs on him, and I'm really pleased that they've gone for him. I keep looking at his photo and thinking, there's no way he could be 19. He looks 14, 15, 16, doesn't he? But I've watched the videos as well, and that's really good. Genuine competition for Yordi as the number 1. And I think Yordi's been offered, hasn't he? Is that right? He's been offered but not signed yet. So, different attributes potentially to bring to that. Absolutely love the other signing as well. Great potential there. The young lad from Bracknell. I will get used to saying his name, but it escapes me as I'm talking to you now. For me, what I want to see a real midfield general, a leader of men. I'm not sure who it is. I'm not one of these like your Tom Williams and your Joe Popes that literally spends all their spare time saying this club should sign this player. I'm not across all the scouting side of it. I'm more of a realistic, like, who have we got? What have they done? What are their attributes? What can I say about them once we've signed them? So It's a harder question for me, Julian, because it's not in my comfort area. But I think I'd love to think of a better example. But do you know when we had Steve Watson, you know, and they don't always get the plaudits, these players, in the middle of the pitch, but someone who leads by example, someone's a leader of men, somebody who'll look you in the eye or pump his fist at you and just get that little bit extra out of you. I'd love to have that. And I think Tommy Widrington's side needs one of those as well. I do hope Dayan Tete can stay fit and signs for us. I'm not alone in thinking that a lot of our better results have occurred when he's been in that midfield. But I don't worry about it too much. I know a lot of fans do. I do trust in Tommy and in Jamie and their recruitment. They've done really, really well in the first season. It will be tough to match that. It really will be tough to match that. And we can't expect improvements anywhere near the percentages we had last season. But if we can improve, 2 points, 1 place, we're in the playoffs, right? So that's got to be the target for me.
Without sort of mentioning any names, actually, I'm going to mention a name. You and me were both at the England C game earlier this season, and for me, I was so impressed with Ollie Pearce from Worthing. He looked so comfortable, and I would imagine that probably most of the National League sides are going to go in for him. If we held on to Tolaj and we had Ollie Pearce in there as well, would that be something that would excite you?
Oh, that would be amazing. Yeah, I was excited like you were with Ollie Pearce. You know, I've only seen brief snapshots of him. Obviously, his goal scoring record is outstanding, 41, 42 goals, whatever it was, one league below. I've spoken to a lot of people about him. There are mixed opinions about him. There are people out there who say he's just had the season of his life. He's been around a long time and not been that incredible in the past, but it's the right thing, the right level of maturity of a player, you know, at the right time, at the right club, playing the right way. So it doesn't necessarily follow that an Ollie Pearce would jump up to a National League club and be outstanding next season. I've spoken to one National League manager who should remain nameless, who really thinks he'd struggled to get 15 goals in the National League. That surprised me, and we'll probably get to find out because I think he will join at least a National League club. He's earned that opportunity, hasn't he? I like the way he does things a little bit differently. He's not predictable, is he, Ollie Pearce? And he's bright and inventive. And I'd love to have someone like him there. I would not be surprised at all if he ends up at York for 2 reasons. One, because he played for Hinchelwood at Worthing, and 2, because it's, you know, if there are 3, 4, 5 National League clubs queuing up for Ollie Pearce, then probably the one with the biggest checkbook likely to prevail, aren't they?
Yeah, obviously the defence was, you know, you could argue was a bit of an issue last season, and with Kean Harris going, for me, I would love to see a bit of experience in the back line there. You know, I keep thinking back to your Ray Warburtons, who were just, you know, leaders, and whatever he did, you followed it. And I'd love to see a Ray Warburton type come in. And I also noticed yesterday, I think that Maniese has been released from Walsall. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd be very happy to have Roland Maniese, Haji Minoga, even Dylan Kaji. Thankfully that didn't happen on the BBC. But I'd be happy for any of those. I think Dylan Kaji is a wonderfully versatile player. I think he could do a job in midfield and or defence as required. But yeah, Roland Maniese, you have to think that all 3 of those players are well versed with our club and with Tommy, and Tommy with them. There may be some difficulties. You know, Haji Minoga, love him, absolutely love him. He's such an athlete, such a ball player, such a dribbler, such a competitor. Released by Portsmouth, but you surely would think a League One or League Two club would come in for him. But you know what? Depending on who they were, where they were, he knows he's well loved at Aldershot, isn't he? So hopefully we've got a chance. I'd be happy to have a couple of those three back. We're being linked strongly, aren't we, with Jenkins from Chelmsford? I think that one is going to involve some compensation because of his age, and so whether or not we're in that kind of game to pay anything other than nominal fee, I don't know. Don't really know about the financial side, but I like us being bright, young, athletic, front-footed team. Personally, I don't care too much if that's the way we play next year as well. But I do hope, of course, that, instead of conceding 80 to 90 goals, maybe we concede 60 to 70 next year and can somehow score a similar amount. And that differential should have us in that top 7.
I mean, that's the dream. That's the dream we've been just shouting about for about 6 months, I think, on the pod about our goal difference, Joe. So, yeah.
Would you change it though, lads? Any of you? Would you have changed this season for the sheer excitement? That for me, we didn't make the playoffs, but those crowds happened, and those crowds happened not because they thought we had a chance at the playoffs, but because it was a really entertaining product on show. And if we won a game 5-2 or we lost it 4-3, they were coming back for that next game, because you don't want to miss that, do you? You'd have serious FOMO.
Yeah, this podcast wouldn't exist without the first 2 or 3 months where we were, gung ho, and we knew turning up to the EBB would score, and we haven't had that in recent years. This is why it brought so many people along with it, us included as well. So yeah,
absolutely.
The only question I've got, this is probably for everyone here. I was having a debate. Do you know the Spurs City game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? Now, I know Spurs and Arsenal have got a bigger rivalry than, say, Aldershot and Woking, Aldershot and Woking, I'm going to say. Would you turn up to the ground and want the other team to win? So let's say it's... trying to think of a team off my top of my head. Let's say it's Rochdale. We've got Rochdale at home, and Woking could win the title if we whatever it is. You know what I mean? That thing. What would you turn up to the ground wanting Rochdale to win in order to take it off of Woking?
Who's going first? I'm shaking my head here.
Go for it, Rob. Go for it.
Never. No, I don't get it. I don't understand it. I mean, I have to be honest. I don't feel the Woking rivalry as much as some Aldershot supporters, because I don't live in the area, and I personally glad that Woking stayed up, because that's a big game, isn't it? On Boxing Day and New Year's Day. But no, in that situation, it's difficult to imagine a situation where I'd ever want Aldershot to lose or not to win. And I found it weird watching that game, how deathly quiet the Spurs fans were, almost like they were too embarrassed to sing support for their team that night. Shame on them.
Yeah, so bizarre. Well, I'll put it into my friends' group chat. I've got an Arsenal fan, a Norwich fan, and a United fan, and they all seem to be like, yeah, I wouldn't want the other team to win, but it might be the rivalry difference. I'm not sure. What do you think, Joe?
I think it just sums up the current state of football support in the Premier League, doesn't it? It's just crap. Follow the National League and below. It's much more interesting until the point we make the Premier League, in which case, I'll be all over it.
Lapping up VAR like it's nobody's business.
Yeah, I mean, my own thoughts is, with Tottenham, I thought, how sort of pathetic they are, and sums up some of their mentality about it. But now that you've said Woking, Will, I'm not so sure how I feel, because obviously what we've always had over Woking, whatever you think of the rivalry, is the fact that they've never been in the Football League. And if that suddenly changed, I'm not sure I want that to happen. So maybe I am sort of coming round to the Spurs point of view.
Very honest.
Yeah, I will add. So potentially, so with that game, obviously Spurs could potentially have still got to the Champions League. So let's still say that Aldershot playing Rochdale at home, we could potentially come 7th if we win our last two or 3 games or something.
I definitely want us to win then.
Yeah, I'll add that into it before I go to Julian for the, I don't know, devil's advocate is me is just having a field day.
Yeah, no, I agree with Rob and Joe. I could never back against the Shots, whatever situation. If it meant Woking going up, then at the end of the day, 46 games later, whatever it is, if they finish top, then they obviously deserve to go up. So it would have to be that for me. Just as we were having that discussion, I was thinking of another discussion that some Shot supporters have had in the past, where I've heard some people say they'd much rather be a division below playing well than a division higher struggling. And I can never get my head around that. I would always want to be in the highest division possible. So I'd rather be at the bottom of the EFL than at the top of the conference. Am I crazy?
You're not crazy.
I agree with you, Julian. Yeah, I understand where people are coming from. Just up the road from me is a Norwich fan. And of course, they got to the playoff finals to go back up to the Premiership again. One of those perennial bouncer up and downers like your West Broms and your, I don't know, Middlesbroughs, Sheffield Uniteds, whatever. And he was really down that they'd lost. They got hammered 4-0. I tried to find a positive. I said, well, at least you'll be winning more games than losing next year. So that is the other perspective. But no, he'd take losing half the games next year if it meant it was going to be in the Premiership, wouldn't he? You know,
or the potential to potentially win those amazing games, like, you know, a City away or something. You might. I mean, you know, to be honest, no, I'm not even going to say it. You won't win, but there's, you know, there's a 0.05% chance that you can maybe get a result there. Yeah, I was probably one of those people that would have said after our 4th season finishing below 18th that I wanted out of the misery. But that might have been reflected on my personal situation. I was just like, I just want to watch my team win like some games comfortably. But obviously it wouldn't be that easy. We might go down and then never come back up ever again. So you know, I wouldn't wish it now. That's for certain.
I think another thing is that to flip that one is different perspectives on things, and I think I'm certainly a believer in that whatever situation you're in life, you always look for the positives. So there was a season, wasn't there? Was it 2018-19? Was it possibly when we finished in a relegation position and Aldershot, but we stayed up due to the demotion of Gateshead? And I've been, you know, we've been staring it in the face, and I was thinking, no, I desperately didn't want to go down to the National League South, but having been supporting, watching, commentating in the National League, or, you know, even then for quite a few years, the consolation was at least we're going to a few new grounds that I hadn't been to. Whereas, you know, it has become a bit samey sometimes. You know, there's only 1 or 2 new grounds a season at the moment. So if the bad happens, look for the positive, but don't wish for the negative to start with. No.
Just a quickie, Rob. I know you're good friends with the Dorking owner and manager. They've obviously gone down this season, but looking at all the social media, they look like they've taken it really well, and they've made some really good signings, actually. What are your views on non-League South for this season?
Yeah, I haven't fully got my head around it yet in terms of the whole league. And I'm not one of these that likes to make predictions when, you know, some squads have only got, you know, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 players. Dorking retained 20 and they've added 3 already. I think the one good thing for Dorking was they probably, had they stayed in the National League, they probably would have had to have more of a turnover of players. But I think once they went down, I think there's probably 3 or 4 players there that probably could still do them a job at the upper end of the National League South. So, yeah, Mark knows what he wants. He's got some very strong thoughts on it. I think they'll be right up there. I think they'll be front runners. I think they've made some good signings. There is an element of gamble that they've made, though, because I think in Rhys Murphy and also in Brennan Camp, they've signed players who do have injury issues, and they as themselves as a club have had their injury issues. And as we record this here today, I haven't heard any definitive plans that very poor 3G pitch is going to be is going to be ripped up yet. So some of their challenges may still remain at Meadowbank. But I do get on well with him. I do love the Dorking Wanderers story. I think they've become an awful lot of football fans' second or third favourite teams. And it was a shame to see them go down, that's for sure. I like Mark White. He speaks his mind. He tells it as it is. Probably swears a bit too much. But, he's been a breath of fresh air in the National League. And I hope he gets Dorking back up there again.
Nice. And I guess my final question is, just as you mentioned there, is a breath of fresh air. What is Tommy Widrington like to interview in kind of comparatively to other managers that you've had to interview?
Yeah, good. I enjoy talking to Tommy. I mean, I can see a few feet away and feel the pain of defeat there when it's a tough one to take, but he very rarely, he pretty much calls it as it is. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to Tommy. I think I've thoroughly enjoyed his management. Everything has uplifted this season at Aldershot Town, on and off the pitch. We had a lot of talk at the early part, didn't we, about getting on the Tommy bus, but everybody did. And what a great feeling it is with everybody pulling in the same direction. Long may it continue. I haven't had, we've had a few disagreements, not many. His opinion is the one that counts. Occasionally I'll ruffle him with mine, but majority of the time we've seen it similarly. I love his passion for the game. I do think, and whether Tommy hears this or not, I don't mind. I mean, I'm sure he will listen to the odd Aldershot related podcast. I think our disciplinary record cost us last year. I think it cost us a playoff place. Whether it was the 9 players sent off or the 9 red cards we had through the season, whether it was the inavailability of those players, or whether we couldn't go on to get a result, be it a draw or a win, when we lost those players. And we were far and away bottom of the, or top, whichever way you look at it, of the bottom of the fair play league. And I've got a different school of thought on the disciplinary side of things. It goes back to when I played the game. And it's the old Brian Clough mentality. And it's as simple as this: get off the referee and the officials' backs and you will get more decisions. It's as simple as that. Referees are human beings. And if they're getting battered, if they're literally getting pelters from the management, from the staff, from the players on the pitch, there will come a point in that game in which every 50-50 in which they could go either way will go to the other team. So yeah, I've loved Tommy coming in. What could Tommy do apart from some wonderful recruitment and management again this season? But set the example with the discipline, get your own house in order, find a way to suppress the passion or let it out some other way, and get off the officials' backs, because they are poor. God knows I felt for you, and that I felt for Tommy and the team so many times this year. But you won't make the situation any better by reacting the way that you and the players have this season.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Rob. That's all we've got time for. And thanks for coming on.
Oh, absolute pleasure. I've loved it, guys. Great questions. Thank you very much.
Grand,
yeah, thanks, Rob. Can I just say a quick thank you for all that you do? Because I've never lived in Aldershot. I've brought up by my dad, who's a Shots fan, grew up in Aldershot, and lived in Devon my whole life. So always had to, until we've had the National League TV, I've always had radio commentary the entire time. So when Gav Dennison stopped, it was almost like a breakup. But thankfully, you took the place of him and it carried it on. And we're just so grateful as a sort of an exile or a far-flung shot for all the commentary you do. And I know it takes a lot of your time and a lot of effort. So thank you.
That's all right. I hope this second marriage works for you, Ian.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode of When the Flames Go Up. That is it until the pre-season. Remarkably, we've got to 24 episodes and won't be doing any more until something substantial happens. We've not really discussed the kit, the new black away kit. We kind of touched on the 2 early signings that we've made. of an 18-year-old and 19-year-old. But we, you know, when something more substantial happens, we'll be back and probably to discuss the pre-season as it unfolds. So until then, I'll probably see you at Badshot Lee away in one of the friendlies in July. But that's 2 months away. So enjoy the summer holidays and let's pick it up next season on the Tommy Widrington roller coaster. Up the shots.